Hello everyone, this is Tim, and this is going to be, hopefully, the setting video of Houses of the Blooded. Now, this game and I have gone rounds. We've spent a lot of time together. I've read over the book several times, and I was trying to debate how I was going to talk about it, how I was going to do videos about Houses of the Blooded, what path was going to take. And I decided that I've already done the character generation video, and I'll put a link down below. And I figured the next best step would be to discuss and talk about Shan Rii. Shan Rii is called the Great Enemy by the Venn, and the Venn is the culture that you have characters of, and it goes into great detail about their culture and some of the ins and outs, the taboos, the etiquette, the rituals that they perform in their daily life. But in this video, I'm going to focus on the actual setting, the places, the lack of a map and how you and the players make it as you go. But there are hints. There's little tidbits about the setting throughout the rules. And what's interesting about this book is that they're very integrated. There's little bits of information about the setting throughout the entire book, sometimes in places where you wouldn't quite expect it. So what I did was I read through the entire book again, and I took notes about the setting, the things that John Wick has talked about in his setting. And you might look at this and think, maybe the whole point of running a game like this is to not have this much focus on the actual setting, to be able to make it as you go. And it's interesting because while it states that there are lots of things that are listed, things that John Wick has for his version of the setting. And yes, whenever you run a published setting, you do your own thing. So take that as it is. I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about the things that I've noticed about Shan Rii throughout the entire book, and to maybe, familiarize yourself with that setting. Shan Rii is also called Shanru Domya, the Merciless Mother. And Shan Rii, as I said, means the great enemy. In the past, the Sorcerer Kings ruled. They warred and they really messed with the fabric of reality. They changed the living life forms, they changed the world, and they created this slave race called the Venn, who, it is said, magic flows through their veins. And the reason they created them is up for debate, but they often use the Venn and their blood for the very powerful rituals that change the world, change the creatures, and even change the Venn themselves. There's horrible aberrations that are wandering the world because of their elaborate dabblings with genetics and magic, and it's a particular form of magic called blood magic. Some say that the Sorcerer Kings are only sleeping, and when they wake, the Venn will feel their wrath. The Sorcerer Kings are called Elva, Dana, and they almost destroyed the world. The Venn live in this post-apocalyptic world that's strangely mutated. The poor creatures and horrible nightmares that stalk the world are dangerous and deadly, and many have destroyed the Venn, who did not travel in numbers. The world is strange. There are places and landforms beside other landforms that should not exist. Deserts beside jungles. Oceans beside mountain ranges. The archipelago that used to be lush and green with life is now a strange and haunted place, a dangerous place, a place that is almost anathema to the Venn who conquer it and make it their own. All things that the Sorcerer Kings touched became corrupted, distorted, changed. Artifacts that they created are often the doom of the Venn that wield them. We mentioned the creatures that haunt the lands. And these creatures are called orcs as a general term. Anything that is not Venn and is dangerous. They also created houses, things that defy the rules and laws of physical nature. Monstrous places that the Venn have moved into after they are cleared because of the various storms and harsh realities of Shan Rii. These places that the Sorcerer Kings used to live are filled with nightmarish rituals, artifacts that often are best left untouched. But those Venn who would grab power for themselves and keep it often risk these things, and their lives are filled with power and struggle, and often, finally, tragedy. Things change for them. Their goals become muddied, and often they die before they reach old age. That period of time for the Venn called solace, where they are wrapped in a cocoon-like structure as these white hairs emerge from their skin, and they become one of the Swabbing, the ancestors that are worshipped and communicated with, and often give dreams to the Venn that are not dreaming. These structures of the Sorcerer Kings that the Venn have moved into are called Fallen Duwada, and it is said that they have a intelligence, that they guard themselves. But these rich and vain Venn have turned them into puzzle houses, places like a maze or a labyrinth to give them entertainment. But it is said that at each center of these houses, there is a dark heart, corrupt intelligence, that there is a center that should not be found, for it is altogether terrible once beheld for what it truly is. Also, the artifacts of the Sorcerer Kings are said to thirst and hunger for the blood of the Venn. And other artifacts crave even darker things, things that aren't easily given to the artifact. You may ask why someone would even risk such a thing, to touch such a thing of antiquity that will often bring about their downfall. But that is only human concerns, and the Venn are different. They are not us. They are other. But these powers that bring about their downfall also, for a brief moment, let them grasp their dreams, and they can clutch them in the palm of their hand, just for the briefest of moments. In addition to the orcs, the monsters of the world, the horribly transformed and disfigured creatures, there are other things that are more malicious, invisible things called specters. The Venn do not believe that they have souls or spirits, so these aren't those. But these invisible, lurking, hateful things have a malign intelligence to them, alien goals that the Venn do not understand, and often find themselves in the clutches of these creatures. Things that can touch the Venn that the Venn can't defend against, unless they have certain weapons. At times, these specters can possess the Venn, and do it subtly so that no one knows that they are inhabited by some other malign intelligence. Often, the Venn will be brought down to their own tragedy by the forces that are unknown to them. These things that dwell inside that aren't themselves. Things from outside that dwell within. The Venn call the specters Ildrua, the things that cannot be touched. The Venn count seasons like we do: spring, summer, fall, and winter, though winter is particularly cruel on Shan Rii. Even though the seasons are divided thus, 60% of the year is also called the season of storms. Horribly windy, destructive storms come on Shan Rii during this time. And with much of Shan Rii being an archipelago, the waves being rough often bring down ships and make travel difficult. Not to mention the orcs that dwell deep beneath the water. The intelligent storm known as the Anguish knows the Venn, and it hates them. And it is also said that the House of the Serpents, one of the many houses of the Venn, know the true name of the storm and could possibly have power over it, which leaves the other houses fearful. After the Venn's masters were no more, and they were left in this wasteland, this horribly disfigured place, the land called Shan Rii, they are said to have given something of themselves to these sacred animals, these totem creatures, to survive. And with the help of these animals, they did, and they thrived. They took the rough landscape and they civilized it. They put their hands into things. They had their peasants work hard and scrape a living from the strange place that they found themselves. And the many animals that they turned to were the bear, the boar, the cat, the elk, the falcon, the fox, the horse, the serpent, the spider, the wasp, the wolf, and the dragon. And many of these creatures are the names of the various houses, the houses that rule the land, that rule the Venn, that hold on to the power. These sacred animals, called the Olivana, are hunted, but are done so in a ritualistic fashion. There are things and traditions that must be upheld when doing so. But only the blooded, the nobles of the Venn, are allowed to do so. To kill one of these animals without the tradition, without the ritual, and if you are unblooded, one of the peasants, one of the ones that are just barely above dirt, then death is their reward for their actions. There are 3 breeds of animals that are used to pull things and to ride on, especially horses. There's the Ilderim, which is used only for the nobles, and these are worth 30 times the value of a grusha. These are the next lower level of horses. And then there are finally like oxen, donkeys, and mules that are basically used mostly by the peasants to perform their daily activities and tasks. If a Venn doesn't die via violence in their life, as mentioned previously, they become one of the Swabbing. They are covered in this cocoon-like substance, this hair-like substance, whose only vulnerability is fire. And these Swabbing are often worshipped and talked with and discussed at length by the Venn, who should be held aloft, what temples should be made to some of them, while other ones are forgotten about and remain in forgotten, dangerous places that no one wants to visit anymore. Or just, they were unremarkable in life, and no one wishes to have their advice or to see what their hopes and dreams were before they fell into the ever-slumber. Most of the Venn are devoted to at least 1 or 2 of these Swabbing. These are Swabbing that they repeatedly go to, pray in front of, meditate, and their devoted nature to that Swabbing sometimes reveals itself maybe once or twice in their lifetime with visions or premonitions or other strange hints at things to come. There are some major Swabbing that are known throughout the land and have very many devoted followers. Ashalam Avendi, the Master of the Road, a knight known as the Falcon's Friend. Falvrin Deer, swordsman. Old One Eye, the one of the Crimson Cloak. Talton Steel, Ironheart, the Ruthless and known for politics. Mana Renee, Hearth Mother and known for her mastery of etiquette. Talia Yavari, Sacred Harlot, the Queen of Romance. Tane Bran, Keeper of Secrets, the Blind Whispering One, known for his mastery of intrigue. If a Venn is devoted to one of the Swabbing above all others, he calls it the Sa Swabbing. And in addition to these major Swabbing, there are other minor ones that have very small mystery cults devoted to them. And there are also the Feshuva, those Swabbing that were tainted in life, corrupt, vile, evil. And there are mystery cults devoted to them as well. And what gifts are bestowed upon them is anyone's nightmare. One of these Feshuva, these fallen Swabbing, is called Ikalu. This is the Lord of Revenge. And even though his worship has been decreed by law to be illegal, if this Feshuva grants a Venn the right of vengeance, no laws can hold him, keep him back, or stop him from his true purpose. There are 3 known languages of Shan Rii. There is the High, for the blooded, the nobles, the Vulgar, for the peasants, and the strange language of the Sorcerer Kings. And in that language is written many of the strange rituals and bizarre rites of their master race. It is said that many of the orc creatures out there have a form of magic to them, a magic that is based on names and true identities of things. But this is not so for the Venn. For the Venn, the magic flows through their blood, and blood is the main ingredient for these various rituals that they perform. These rituals that are illegal, technically, but the nobles, especially the blooded, bend these rules, break them at times. Even though the House of the Serpent is the only house that is legally allowed to use these rituals, it is often used throughout the various courts of the world. This blood magic was done by the Sorcerer Kings. They sacrificed untold numbers of Venn to perform their various rites. And even though this practice should have died out with the Sorcerer Kings, it has been unearthed whenever the Venn moved into these ancient ruins, these structures of their masters. They learned the secrets that should have been left unlearned. They should have left those dark tomes rotting in the dark, but they viewed them, they learned them, and passed them on. And now the world of the Venn is rampant with these small rituals that are whispered from one noble to another, passed around like so much petty gossip. It is known that the Venn often only have one child, and the only available means to produce twins is through one of these blood rituals, as an example. They can do many bizarre, strange things. They can make weapons that are able to fend off the specters that we mentioned earlier. But that, again, is breaking the law, things that the nobles do often. The Venn nobles imbibe narcotics like candy. There is a wasp-like creature called the Shan Rii, who produces honey like a bee, but this honey is intoxicating and very addictive. They smoke little black cigarettes from the leaves of a witchwood tree. The Venn call these narcotics shutha, and some of the more popular varieties are the Adder of Poppies, Ice Fire, Fox Wine, and the Sicken Veil. In addition to narcotics, there are several poisons that are very deadly to the Venn. They are immune to a lot of them, except for these rare exceptions. Arsenic, cyanide, hemlock, oleander, and strychnine are the poisons that kill the Venn outright. They call poison Ilseer, the quiet death. I could go into more detail about Shan Rii, but this is mostly John Wick's version of the setting. As with all published settings, you can take it, mold it, tweak it, change it, and do your own thing with it. In fact, that's what he suggests, with the various dice mechanics and ways of doing things with the game that I'll talk about in another video. The players and the narrator can make their own version of Shan Rii, and I like that a lot. So even though I'm a setting-first GM usually, it's kind of funny that I'm going to be possibly running a story game, but I do like story games as well. I'm kind of an oddball where I like OSR games, story games, simulationist games, setting-based games. I really love settings, but I'm all over the map. So hopefully you enjoyed this little brief intro into the Shan Rii setting that's part of Houses of the Blooded. And hopefully in the future, not too far into the future, I'll have other videos dealing with John Wick's game, Houses of the Blooded, which you can get for free off of Drive-Thru RPG, but I would suggest throwing John a few dollars at least, because it's a very thick tome. You can tell he put a lot of work into it, and I highly recommend it. So check out Houses of the Blooded, and I'll put some links down below. Thanks for watching.